everyone, and welcome to another edition of the award-winning show Connecting with Kim. I'm your host, Kim Droege. Thank you for joining us today here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. So we have another exciting show for you today because you know my mission every week is to bring you information that helps you live your best life in our corner of paradise. So I want you to go to my Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter account, and X, and like and follow so that you can get the latest information about the show, my guests, and of course my on-air wardrobe from the Spring Boutique located here in Tampa. And we'll talk more about that later. You can also catch the audio of our show on Sun Radio 96.3 FM and on your favorite streaming platform Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 p.m. So virtually you can catch the Connecting with Kim show 7 days a week. And that's a good thing, right? Because you want to tune in. So I'm so excited about my guest today because we actually met about 2 years ago at Tampa Tiger Bay. He was there covering one of our monthly luncheons, and I got his card and I said to him, you need to be on my show. And so we are finally making it happen, and I'm really thrilled that he's going to join us today. My guest today is Ray Roa, who is the editor-in-chief for the most happening publication in Tampa Bay, Creative Loafing. Welcome to Connecting with Kim, Ray.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, 2 years. It was 2 years.
It was about 2 years ago.
It goes by quickly.
You know what? I never forget. I put everybody on a list. I put the day they come, you know, that I say I approach them, and I put the date so that because I have a rolling waiting list that I try to get through, and I only film 28 shows a year, so do the math, right?
Right.
And but I've been meaning to get this for a long time, and we had a little, scheduling, so here we are. We'll talk about Creative Loafing, what it is, because it's a weekly publication, and it's much more than that, too. It's on the website. But I always like to start the show the same way, with giving my guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to the watching and listening audience by sharing a little bit about their life journey. Because you just never know when somebody out there either went to the same school you did, is from the same place you had the same job you did, whatever it is. And we want them to, sit there and say, yeah, I'm gonna find all about Ray Roa and Creative Loafing.
Right on. So I got to Tampa 28 years ago. I was 11 years old. My dad was a C++ computer programmer. His job moved him across the country. So we followed him. Before that, I lived in California, a suburb of Los Angeles, Canoga Park. And then I was born in Hawaii, same hospital as Barry Obama. So that's how I got here. And then lived in town and country for a while. My dad kept me pretty active in a lot of things. Just got to see some mentors from an urban junior golf program out in Rogers Park. So pretty attached to Tampa from the get-go. And then Booker T. Washington was my middle school. Fell in love with Ybor City in that way, even at a young age. I think there's a lot of energy in that part of Tampa, and I think I was able to catch a lot of that. And my dad went to a Jesuit college, so he asked me to take the test over at Jesuit High School, and I passed. And he said, that's where you're going to go. So I did the public school to private school thing, and that was a great experience for me, and I'm thankful for my dad for, making those sacrifices. I don't think you realize all the things your parents do for you.
No, you don't.
Until later on. I failed out of USF, started freelancing for Creative Loafing and the Tampa Bay Times, and was working on another website called Reacts. It was a music magazine. Suburban Apologist was an offshoot of that. So just been writing about music locally for like 13 years. And then a full-time job opened up at Creative Loafing in 16. And I was thankful to get that. And then you just stick around, and then here you are, leading the whole thing. So, or at least half of it. James Howard is our publisher, and it's nice to kind of fly underneath him just there, let him kind of steer the ship, and then we do our thing in editorial. So I don't know if that kind of covers it or would present that kind of picture for somebody. So
well, I think it's interesting. Your background, does it? It's not like you had a mission in mind when you were going through your schooling. I don't know what were you trying to major in at USF?
I was a mass comm major.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned your log of when you meet people. I always journaled when I was a kid. Had good English teachers in high school, and was encouraged to write and read a lot. So writing about music was a way for me to not pay for concerts in the beginning, because they were expensive.
They were
then.
expensive, and
They're
they
expensive
still are,
now.
and they're even more expensive now.
Yeah, yeah. So that always worked out for me, and that was kind of like my entry
Mm-hmm.
point. I wrote for this website called Consequences Sound for a little bit. It's a national website, and wanted to bring kind of that attention that website brought to national artists to locals. So creative loafing is a great avenue for that. So and just kind of learned as I went along. Didn't go to journalism school or anything like that, so I don't have the J school.
Well, you don't have to be. You don't have to go to
polish.
journalism school to be a great writer, or a great editor,
Sure.
or even to be able to spot talent, right?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to know people and been hired by people who believed in me, and then, every day I think we just try to do that, bring people in, and also give them the same kind of opportunities in a field that is hard to break into, and hard to stay in.
Well, let's take kind of a step back, because we talked about what creative loafing is at the beginning, but let's flesh that out a little bit more for our watchers and listeners. So it's a free weekly publication. It's also a website. It's also an event company, and it's also a content creator. So there's a lot of hats you all are wearing at Creative Loafing. I know that I enjoy your website a lot. That's how I partake of what's going on in Creative Loafing. I follow your social media posts, and then I go to your website a lot. And you've been around for, we're going on 35 years pretty
88
soon.
to 35 years. Yep.
And you're also Best of the Bay, which a lot of people out there are going to know about Best of the Bay. So let's kind of, back up and let all of our viewers and watchers know, a little bit more about what is Creative Loafing, besides what a great name.
Yeah, the name was, it came out of a time when the internet wasn't a thing. So I think in some ways, thinking now, you'd love to be Tampa Weekly or something like that, but I think Creative Loafing is a great name. I love the name. The paper was called Weekly Planet for a while. I love that name.
Yeah, I like that name
the
too.
The branding around that was really good. But yeah, it's an alt weekly, and the idea of alternative news has really changed over the years, especially with the high polarization and proliferation of information on the internet, specifically fake news and things like that. People out there reading blog posts by guys named Tyler Durden and thinking they're real, So alternatives kind of changed, but we've always kind of been attracted to creative people, even from our inception, vegans before veganism was cool, nudists, things like that, like people who are outside of the box.
Right.
Underheard voices. And I think we still try to do that, but I think that the publication has changed a lot too. The internet asks you to do a lot of things, asks you to move at a different speed, and the city around you changes and your readers change, and you want to continue to give them, interesting things to do. So a lot of times All Weekly was kind of too cool for a lot of things, and I think we've adopted some things that maybe are a little bit more mainstream, while also being able to cover things that are outside of the box that aren't covered in mainstream news channels here, whether it's TV, print, online. And yeah, we do a print publication every week. We do that, a digital version of that, and then the website's very active.
Well, doing a print publication every week, I mean, I got to tell you something. You and I both know, today, that is quite a major accomplishment, because most people, I mean, I'm a person who loves a newspaper, and so I like to see, touch, and feel a newspaper, and I like to have it in my hands, and I like to read it. But most people do not like that, and they want to get their news online somehow. It could come through social media, it could come through online websites, it could come through subscriptions, but it's not, most people don't want to, so I think that's quite an accomplishment still in this day and age.
I love to touch paper too. I mean, if you go see my desk, there's a stack of La Gacetas, there's a stack of Creative Loafings, Sentinel bulletins in there.
Yeah.
Anything I can kind of get my hands on, and we love our print audience. We view them as differently. We know people are on their phones looking at stuff, so we try to meet people where they are, be a part of their lives and not force them, to be a part of ours, and meet them there and listen to them and give them those types of things. So yeah, a lot's changed, but I think at its core, Creative Loafing has really stayed committed to amplifying kind of those outside voices, and we've done it with an increasingly small staff over the years.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because when I go on your website and have a look around, I mean, at the top are a lot of, I mean, for me, I think it's a lot of categories of information that you cover. I mean, it's quite extensive, and each one of those categories has a drop-down menu. So now it's even more. So I'm always impressed by that. How many people are actually working for Creative Loafing, and are the people that, like, what I'd call full-time, so to speak?
Sure.
And then the people that are what, like on, contract, freelance,
Sure,
whatever.
sure. So I could speak for the editorial side. We have 3 full-time editorial staffers. Myself, a digital editor, Colin Wolf, and a managing editor, Kyla Field. So together, with some regular freelance contributors, contribute some of the longer, more recurring things. We publish about 60 new links on the website every week. Our newspaper is about 48 to 56, sometimes 64 pages.
Wow.
And then on the other side, we have sales and marketing staffers. So our publisher, James, Anthony Carbone, our senior salesperson. We have a social person, and Corey and Lee. So they do that. They do the events that you're talking about. They throw lots of events, a lot of promotions, and I think they have good partnership with their clients. And I'm really grateful to work at a publication that still keeps those 2 things separate.
Yeah.
And I love that separation of editorial and marketing, and I love our relationship together, and I love watching them do what they do too, because we love the news, we love writing about food, news, all that stuff, but they love what they do too, and it takes 2 different kinds of people to run a newspaper, and paper is expensive too, so
Well,
I'm always in awe of the fact that we are on stands every week, never missed a single issue during the pandemic. Really just our contributors really carried us, and those advertisers that stuck with us, I think. James would say that too.
That's very impressive, I have to say. Not to miss a single issue during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And especially when during the pandemic, there wasn't a lot going on as far as events and people being out and about. Because, I mean, you write about everything. I mean, there's almost...
And those are our people, right?
Exactly.
Our whole magazine is about getting off of your couch, although we're called Creative Loafing, right? And going to, like, experience and create a sense of place and connection with where you live. And when the pandemic happened, I mean, we laid off 67% of our entire staff. And I know that our advertisers and the things we wrote about just dried up. But there's still a public service element, still news that you can share with people, and still stories to tell.
Yeah.
So we are fortunate to have contributors that wanted to help us do that. So here we are.
Now, where can you find the print version of Creative Loafing?
So you find the red boxes. They're in various states of disarray or cleanliness. When you're around for 35 years, your boxes take a beating. So there's some really gnarly looking boxes in some places. Some are a lot nicer than others. So you can find those in almost any, like, city center, downtowns, things like that. You can always shoot us an email. James has a distribution map. And then really we have a digital issue online you can flip through, iPads, on your phone, and then cltampabay.com, where everything that you see there almost always is in the book too, outside of some political cartoons and things like that, Savage Love, our sex advice column and stuff like that. So,
well, and you have a fairly large social media presence also. I mean, I follow your postings all the time, and then you're in my news feed, so I'll click on that too. Besides going to the website, if you're just joining me now on Connecting with Kim, my guest in the chair is Ray Roa, who is the editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing, which is headquartered here as part of a, well, dare I say, newspaper empire here in Tampa Bay, and they're just, I mean, to me, they're what's really happening. I don't know if I want to say this. I think of La Gazzetta. Well, I think of I read La Gazzetta on a regular basis too, and I view that more as covering the political scene, right? Although he does a lot more than that. But that's what I think of Patrick doing. You cover a lot more than that. I mean, you covered that a little bit, but way more.
We do have a lot of stuff going on. Our most popular vertical is food and drink, and people love restaurant openings, and they love to hear about that kind of stuff. They love live music. I think we have the most robust live music calendar week in and week out. We still write about local music on an almost daily basis. Would we like to do it in more robust ways? Like when I was music editor, sure. But we still do that. So yeah, like my favorite part about a La Gazzetta is opening up, read the first half of that page 1, flip to 12.
Page 12.
And a lot of times I'll reach out to Patrick and I'll say, hey man, you published this thing, and as you heard it, can we run it too? And then I need to follow up on this. Can you tell me, who you talked to? So there's a lot of stuff there, and it's all interconnected. And I think in the best situations, and I think, like I said, at Creative Loafing are got bedfellows in a way, and that I think we are aligned with a similar demographic and population. You know, working class people in working class towns and neighborhoods. But yeah, like you said, we also write about bougie stuff too.
Well, you do.
And because it's fun too.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Our readers have money to spend, and they want to go spend it. I would rather have them spend it at a cool local spot than, you know, something that maybe isn't or something like that. So we write about the things we love, and hopefully our readers will love it too, and then just continue to fall in love with Tampa the way that we are. And there's like so many new people moving here
Oh, yeah.
all the time, so we tell our contributors all the time, like, you might feel like you are like beating a dead horse here,
But you're not.
every day you have a new opportunity to meet somebody who hasn't read this news publication before, and, you know, could learn to love it the same way you do. And if you're not the one out there on the soapbox yelling this stuff, then it's going to be somebody else. And I would rather have them read you and catch on to your excitement than somebody else's. So
That's how I feel about
Yeah.
my show too. You know, it doesn't matter how much I know about what you're talking about, your subject that you're in the chair for. It's those people out there, and those people out there are changing all the time. And so, you know, you're right. I mean, you've got to keep reintroducing yourself and re-energizing that audience out there to make them want to follow you, to go to the places you're talking about, to feed you story ideas. I mean, do people do that, right? I mean,
yeah,
they get in touch with you, right?
The tip game is awesome, and my inbox is a complete dumpster fire, and I work through it every day. You know, you wake up 500 emails, you get through them, and yeah, we just want people to like have a chance to connect with the place that they live, learn to love the place where they live, because at some point in their existence, the place where they live and the things that they care about will require and ask our readers to put their own effort behind to save things. You know, look at what's going on in Ybor City right now. And without those kinds of experiences that people have in Ybor, then maybe Ybor didn't have a chance, but it endures, and Ybor is still out there because people love it, and they go. So
Yeah, people
Yeah.
love Ybor. So let's talk about something that you guys have been doing for a long time that is very well known in the community, which is Best of the Bay.
yeah, best of
So let's talk about Best of the Bay, because some of you people out there are not going to know what Best of the Bay is about, and you're going to want to know.
So Best of the Bay will celebrate its 35th anniversary in the fall. It's a combination of a reader's poll. So in the past, literally, there was a voting poll in the paper you'd have to fill out with a pen, and you either used to have to mail it
Yeah.
to the office or walk your ballot in. So now it's obviously online, but people nominate their favorite people, places, whatever. I think there's like 300 categories.
I
or
know,
something.
the categories are overwhelming.
And it's awesome. It is, you know, when I first started, I always felt like it was a little bit overwhelming, but then as you kind of get in it and you start to work it, and you start to you learn so much about your community through the nomination process, the voting process, and then you get to see people work on their campaigns for that, and then you see them at the party, and then you see how, when you put in a lot of hard work and you win something, how much it means to people when they're named Best of the Bay by our readers. I mean, I think 2 years ago we counted, and this year would have been the case too, more people voted in Best of the Bay than they did in both municipal elections in St. Pete and Tampa combined, right?
Yeah.
So by a long shot. So it's really like voting from your peers. And then we have the critics picks where we get to recognize people in the community and cool things that happen every year. And it's a really cool opportunity to take a catalog of the year that was, and then move along from it and then celebrate that. And we have a huge party, which is a lot of fun. And then we do it again, you know, and I think that's what it's all about. A lot of times we talk about the website, the paper, and you're talking about somebody interfacing with your publication without you there. But when you go to the Best of the Bay, you get to see like all your readers and all the people, and you get to see the excitement, and I think it like epitomizes of like what we're trying to be in this community. Like we want to celebrate this community, and I think that's a really good representation of that.
Well, give everybody out there a little idea of how many people are voting on Best of the Bay.
Gosh, I'd have to look at it. I mean, I can't remember the numbers offhand, but more people voted in.
But it's got to be
Best of the
several
Bay.
thousand, because if you're
beyond that.
if you're surpassing the municipal elections.
I mean, more people voted in
Which is
Best of
kinda
the Bay
sad when you
than
think about
voted for Donald Trump, I think, in the entire Bay Area last election cycle 4 years
Wow.
ago. So it's a lot of people. It is like an overwhelming, like the website has to get shored up because the traffic is crazy.
Crazy.
And there's a lot of vetting that goes on. There's I guess whatever, I'll say this, but like, some people have to be disqualified because they've deployed bots and stuff to try to win and stuff like that. So our systems pick that stuff up, and so it's pretty awesome. And I think it's great because people really care about the thing that they do. Because everybody that has a business here,
Yeah.
for the most part, is putting their heart, soul, their entire life savings into this thing to make it work. And they deserve to be recognized for that.
Let's take a few moments and talk about the various categories of Best of the Bay, because
Sure.
I mean, like I said, when you go to the website and start looking at the categories,
Yeah.
especially if you're going to start voting, and I love the way. I have to say, your vetting of the voting is also very, very good. I mean, you can't just like hop on the website and start clicking. I mean, you have to fill out some information. They have to know who you are. I mean, it's a form of vetting to see, like, are you a real person voting for this stuff? I mean, I love that.
It's pretty democratic, and like I've been really impressed with how we've done it so long, so they figured out a lot of things. But it's really cool to see it go from the open nomination process down to the nominees, down to the voting, and how much hands-on it is from everybody on staff. It is truly like an all-hands-on-deck situation where everybody is having to check things, and then you get down to the winners and contacting them. So for as large as it is, and it has this, I mean, the categories are.
Well, just name some of
Insane.
them, because I mean, I don't think people will understand.
I mean, you
what
can go anywhere from general to like best, hairstylist, and best nail person, best moving company, and then all the way down to crazy stuff like best sandwich that's not a Cuban, best newspaper that's not creative loafing, best, and we just come up with this stuff, and every year people have suggestions, so
you're adding categories?
So we add some, we take some away,
Yeah.
and that makes people mad and makes some people happy. But it's really cool to just have like that relationship with readers, and to like just again, so many times the internet creates this layer of like anonymity, and disconnectedness. But it's so crazy to do Best of the Bay and feel so connected to so many people. And if you don't make it to the party, a lot of the winners, they come to the office and pick up their awards. So for weeks after the party, we just have people coming into the office, and you're shaking hands with people, like meeting people. Like I met you at Tiger Bay. Like,
Yeah.
And when you meet people that are doing things in the community that you live in, you just love your community like that much more. Every day can feel like a grind, but when you're with the people that you're doing it with, it's like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why it's the best job. Because it's stressful as a moof, like, and it's hard. But it's super rewarding when you get to like interface with people. So, yeah.
Well,
it's
I
awesome.
imagine doing Best of the Bay can be stressful.
It's like the most stressful time.
because I mean, it's huge.
I get like anxiety because I also know that some people are going to be really mad. And
Yeah.
that's gotten a lot better over the years in terms of me being able to handle that. But, like you don't want to let anybody down, but you're going to let people down. But this year was really good. I was like super happy. I'm super excited for the 35th anniversary. Hopefully we can do something really big for that. So.
Yeah. So that's going to be my next question. We have very little time left, so I want to
Sure.
cover what's in the store for Creative Loafing.
Just like any media company, I think that we have to navigate things like declining like web revenue or changing dynamic web revenue. Like how do you make money on the internet? A lot of times people say stuff like journalism is under attack and things like that, and I don't know necessarily how I feel about that, because I think you end up taking kind of a defensive position, and I think journalism still has a big place to be on attack, right? Like it still has a job to do, and yes, there are challenges, staffing, money, like it's all hard, but your edict and your mission is still the same, so you should just keep doing it every day. So in a lot of ways, we've put the blinders on in editorial in that sense, and have continued to go forward and try to do our best with our contributors to fulfill that stuff. But there are those kinds of challenges in editorial, the changing marketing, landscape. But I think deep down, everybody that works for us really cares about the publication and the community. So then that can kind of express itself in the way that we do our individual and collective jobs. And I think as long as you kind of stay pure and true to that, then I think you have a really good chance. So I don't know if that answers your question about what's next. We
Well,
just keep going,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I believe, like you do, there is still a demand. Number one, well, there's still a calling, there's still a demand, and there's still a market. And I'm using market in a very broad sense, for good journalism, for good writing, for good perspective, for some balance along the way. I think there's still plenty of opportunity for that.
Yeah.
I think people are searching for that. They're navigating the web and social media to find that. I mean, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think the hope for us is that people who feel like they're not being heard in traditional media outlets could feel like they are being heard in ours. I mean, and that's not to say we would run the opinions of some nut job person. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about giving voice to like complete psychopaths, but it is about finding those people who really feel like their voice isn't being heard, and that they do have something to say that's constructive, and making sure that they have a platform. And aspirationally, I think that's what we'd like to do. So.
Well, before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to directly appeal to the audience out there? Because you can look into that camera and say whatever is on your mind.
No, just like thanks for the support, and it's cool that you're watching me like on this channel. Like it's this station and this entity, TBAE, is like propelled by people who really are your neighbors and who really care about this place too. And it's great that institutions like ours still exist. And I think there will come a time when the community will have to stand up for institutions like ours, and like I just hope that the work that we do would inspire people to do that. So that's really all.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for being my guest on Connecting with Kim today.
Of course.
I really appreciate it. In
Thanks for
case
having
you're
me.
just tuning in, Ray Roa, who is the editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing, and if you don't know about Creative Loafing, you need to go find out. So because you can see, touch, and feel it in a paper version. You can go to the website. You can follow them on social media. But I can assure you that if you want to know what's happening in Tampa Bay, you're going to want to follow Creative Loafing. So thanks again.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So anyway, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank my sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay. They supply my on-air wardrobe from the Spring Boutique, which is located at the corner of Swan and Henderson in Tampa. And the net proceeds from the thrift store on Willow and the boutique on Swan and Henderson support the mission of the Spring of Tampa Bay, which is to provide safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children. And they've been doing a great job at it since the 70s, so I want you to support them. And in 2024, they are going to be opening, and we'll talk about this in 2024, but they're going to be opening a brand new location. It's kind of up near Tampa Airport. So we'll talk about where that is, and they're going to start to consolidate some of their locations and their services and even offer more. So that's all we have time for today. Come back next week for another edition of Connecting with Kim.